Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reselling Rhythms. If you're new to my channel, my name is Adam, and my channel's name is Adam's Exploits. What I do is I attempt to have every Wednesday at 3 p.m. normally Eastern Time, other resellers come on my channel and educate us about how they do things, tell us their strategies, maybe their sourcing, how they source, some tips, some tricks, just how they do that to better educate us as resellers and to make us better resellers. So we do that every Wednesday, typically at 3 p.m. Today, my guest, to accommodate, we'll get in a little bit about why he's here at 1 p.m. He works for a company that most of you are probably familiar with. So we'll get in that in a few minutes. So just want to say hello to a few people on the chat, and we'll get started shortly. Mr. Jamie Pace. Thanks, James. Mr. Jamie, thanks for joining us. I was funny. I was looking at your Facebook the other day, Jamie, when you had the German Shepherd in the house and the bed and the blanket. I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. Now the dog's a house dog instead of an outside dog. So anyway, that was interesting. Susan, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you always being here for me. We're just going to give it like another minute or two and we'll get started. Hey, Wes, how you doing, buddy? I'm sure you know who our guest is. You've been involved in this channel before. So like I said, guys, we'll just get into a little bit. I'll discuss what we're going to talk about, and then I'll introduce my guest. And then if you're watching the replay, I don't want to keep you guys waiting, jumping forward in the video, so to speak. So basically what we're going to discuss today is Jason, Prof Sales, is my guest. Jason is from the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and I'll get into that. Jason has had a varied experience in reselling. He's constantly analyzing his business model and making changes, and we'll get into that. He's sold different types of things from jeans on the books. What I really want to concentrate is book selling because I believe that most of us have access to books, and Jason will share his experiences and expertise, and we'll talk about some of the tools he uses, some of the sourcing opportunities we have, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, guys, unfortunately, YouTube is kind of wonky sometimes, and my notifications don't go out immediately. So I'm sure we'll have people filling in very shortly. So let me get over to Mr. Jason, and we'll have Mr. Jason introduce himself. And there is our guest, Mr. Jason Prof Sales. Oh, you're muted, Jason. Oh, I muted you. I'm sorry. I thought I unmuted you. There you go.
Oh, hey, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I see lots of people are jumping in the room, which is cool to see. I've seen some of these people on my channel too.
I'm sure you have. Mr. West, and a PGH Picks, I'm sure you know.
Yep. Well, thanks for the introduction too. As some of you may know or may not know, I've been selling and reselling really for about 10 years, but more in depth for the last 5. I have a retail background. I worked in retail management for about 8 years as a manager for a couple companies, for Kmart and Gap. And I got into reselling, just looking for extra income and so on. And for a while, turned it into more of a full-time gig back a few years ago. I got my start on eBay, basically reselling clothing, but I quickly moved into the jeans niche because it was something I understood from my time at Gap, which Gap was really, really well known for selling jeans for a lot of decades. And, I was able to build up a fairly large jean business and so on. I started a YouTube channel to share kind of that journey. But I'm a numbers guy, and I'm always about whether something makes sense mathematically or not, whether the finances are there, the financials. And we reached a point with our jean business. Cara, my girlfriend, helps me as well. She's been a big integral part of it. We reached a point where we decided that it wasn't really quite enough for us. So we started transitioning away from jeans and moving a little bit more towards Amazon, which has had its ups and downs as well. We did some personal shopping, or not personal shopping. That's not the right, I guess, shopping for people who are sourcing liquidations. It's maybe a better way to put it. Back a couple years ago, so we had a lot of fun doing that with the Bon-Ton stores up in the Midwest, as well as Toys R Us when they went out of business, and learned a lot of things about liquidation, learned a lot of things about volume and discounts and things like that. And books has always been a part of my Amazon journey as well. Books are really cheap. They're a really easy way to get started on Amazon. You're not going to be restricted in hardly any of them. And I think they still represent a great opportunity. So we've had quite an evolution over the last few years. And we've I'm not somebody who believes that you do the same thing forever, because I don't think the same thing will work forever, especially not in this kind of field that we're in reselling. So I'm always one to evolve. I'm always one to be constantly asking questions, making sure that what we're doing makes sense and aligns with what our goals are. And I try to reflect that in the content we have on the channel too. So hopefully that was a decent introduction.
And you are in the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Correct.
You have, I guess, quite a few sourcing opportunities down there, quite a few thrift stores. We'll get into that, where you source down with the books, and you'll get into that a little bit. I know you said on your last show, or show prior to today's show, you said you have a new show up. Guys, I'm going to link that in the description below. Jason just released a new book sourcing video, and apparently there's a lot of very good information in that. So I'll put that link after the everything updates on YouTube. I'll put that link down below so you can watch that as well. And if you're not subscribed to Jason's channel, Prof Sales, please do so. He's a wealth of information. Like you said, he's a numbers guy. He's very analytical, and he's constantly adjusting and readjusting his business model, which I find very interesting, because like I say all the time, and I tell you guys sometimes, I'm my own worst enemy. But I mentioned this, that I learned this in college. The only thing that is permanent is change.
Right.
And it's true. If you get stuck in a rut and you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, the definition of insanity, you do the same thing over and over again, you expect different results. No, you're going to get the same results. So you have to constantly readjust your business and, sell what's selling, basically, or fish where the fish are, so to speak. So hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. What are you saying there, Jamie? It's a nice pattern to keep my metrics high with electronics. Yeah, Jamie sources books quite a bit also, and he does very well with electronics. He's in Texas. He does extremely well. He's Jamie. I don't even want to know how many listeners you have, probably in the tens of thousands. But Jamie is insane. He works full time for his family's oil rig business, and he basically works full time reselling as well. And he has a girlfriend that lives with him with her toddler, and he has a toddler, and I think his son is probably around 9-10 years old as well. So he's got a lot on his plate. So, yeah, James is an interesting person.
Yeah, he's on my channel too, so he's a good dude.
I've seen Jamie on your channel before.
Oh yeah, I've seen several of these people, so we have some common viewers, common watchers.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you.
That's okay. Well, let's get into, like I said, we're going to touch a little bit on the different things that you sold. And then I said, I really want to emphasize the book selling, for the latter part of the show. So we're running at about like 10 minutes now, so we're fine. So once you get into why you decided to get into jean selling, the pluses and the minuses, we had discussed about BOLO lists and, whether they still work or not, and how current they can be. And why don't you just get into the business model as far as jean selling?
Yeah. No, good question.
Make you the full screen, Jason?
Sure, go ahead.
Is that okay? Okay.
I have the green screen behind me, so if you want to put your own background back there, everybody watching, it's not quite how it works. But that's a whole nother story. Green screen, it's fun. But it will take more time and effort than you thought. No, I guess part of the reason I got into jeans was when Jeff Bezos was deciding to start Amazon, he made a list of 20 things that could sell online. He knew online was going to be a big marketplace, and he landed on books. And he landed on books because he thought they were easy, they were plentiful, they were easy to ship, they were easy to categorize, and so on. Like he looked for the low-hanging fruit to start, right? And of course, they expand out in other things. I kind of did the same thing with jeans in a way. Jeans for me was low-hanging fruit because I had experience selling them. I had experience with answering questions about fit and makes and so on. But beyond that, the area that I lived in Charlotte was pretty plentiful with clothing that was fairly cheap. I think at that time, jeans were $3.99 a piece. I believe they've gone up to $4.99 and maybe even $5.99 now at like the thrift stores. They're easy to store. You can store in a small bedroom easily 1,000 pair of jeans if you have an organized system. probably a couple thousand if you're really organized. They're easy to ship because you can stick them in a flat rate envelope, and that's a fairly economical way to ship them across the country or even to other parts of the world. They are easy to repeat the listing information. If you've got this type of jean and this fit and this size, you can use a lot of templates on eBay, so you can really speed up your listing time. They're pretty easy to photograph. That one's a little trickier because of coloration and so on. They're easy to provide item specifics and so on. Like, they were just easy. So I didn't want to do anything that would require me to go way outside my comfort zone and figure something new out that may or may not be such a good thing to do. So I researched jeans on eBay. I looked at solds and I looked at completeds. I looked at sort of the sold percentage rate, what percent we're selling through versus what percentage were listed, because that's important, right? You want to know, like, just because they're listed doesn't mean they sold for that amount. And they had a pretty good sell-through if you pick the right brands and the right fits and the right sizes and so on. So I knew there was a market. I knew that there was all these other things that were pluses for me. And for us, it just became a no-brainer to figure out how to get jeans as quickly and as cheaply as we could and list it as fast as we could and start building an inventory.
So that was basically your background from working at the Gap, and you knew jeans, and that was your kind of your comfort zone. And you said you knew the styles and fits and things, and they were plentiful. And I guess, like you said, you did your research as far as the sell-through rates to determine what sold and what didn't sell. And I guess I know you're a numbers person, so you're probably always running your numbers as well.
Yeah, I knew that you would sell a certain percentage of your inventory every day. And if you're a reseller, that's always true. Now, the tricky part is figuring out what that percentage is likely to be. But if you can do that and be reasonably accurate, you can kind of forecast, roughly what your sales will be, which then you can figure out kind of what your cash flow will be, what sort of money you can make, on and on and on. But I knew kind of, if I have this many listed, I'm likely to sell this percentage. And I'm likely to sell this percentage, which translates in this many jeans over this much time, and so on and so on. Like, I try to treat it like a business. I try to treat it just like you would if you were opening up a brick and mortar store. You need to know, like, things like, what's your cost of goods? What's your cash flow look like? How big of a chunk of are your operating expenses? What are your operating expenses? Is this going to be worth it or not for the time you put in? And I decided after doing all those things, the jeans made sense. So that's why we went that route as well.
Now, how long did you total end up selling jeans for? How long a period of time?
Oh, let's see. I probably really didn't stop. I probably sold them for about 3.5 years, I guess, but heavily for about 3 years.
Right. Okay. And then after the jeans, you rolled into what?
So after jeans, well, let me just explain why we really moved away from them.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I should ask you that.
We had an well, because I think some people would be like, well, why stop if it's so great?
Right.
Well, we had this idea we were going to try to scale our jean business up to 5,000 pair. That was sort of an arbitrary number, but it wasn't totally arbitrary because I knew at that amount, like, the income we'd be pulling off of it would be pretty decent, potentially. But as we started doing that, we started running some real logistical hurdles. The biggest one just being supply. And then the second biggest one being the labor to do it. And after kind of analyzing those two things, how far we'd have to go for supply or where we could get supply, and then the amount of time we would need to hire people to do things for us, it just didn't really make that much sense. Like, we were kind of buying ourselves a job. And we decided that wasn't really going to get us there. And part of that was eBay itself. Like, eBay, there just wasn't a way to move enough volume for the limited resource we had. I'll give you an example. Like, BHFO is still one of the largest sellers on eBay. They do tens of millions of dollars a year. And they sell primarily clothes.
Right.
I don't know if they sell anything else, but they sell a lot of clothes. They sell tens of thousands of items a month. But they have a massive operation. They employ, I want to say, 170 people in a big 200,000 square foot warehouse out in the middle of, I want to say it's Iowa, that has a pretty sophisticated inventory system and setups for product, photography and descriptions. I mean, it's a massive business, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sure they're happy with it, but we didn't want that. So we decided to move towards somewhere we could move more velocity with less effort on our end. And by effort, I mean just eBay is like more physically time consuming than say Amazon, where Amazon has the FBA advantage, which is fulfilled by Amazon, where you can send items to Amazon, they will warehouse them, they will store them, they will handle the marketing piece, obviously, just like eBay does. You don't have to take photographs. They will pack and ship your item, and they will do customer service on the back end. Like, because if you don't send to Amazon, or if you're not using Amazon or some service like that, you're doing all those things.
Right.
You have to do all those things. Like on eBay, you literally have to do all those things. You have to warehouse them. And there's nothing wrong with that model. Don't get me wrong. But again, you will find that more and more of your time gets devoted to all those operational things, those back-end items. I mean, we thought about it this way. You pick up a pair of jeans and now the clock is running. And let's say your net profit, you're projecting on that pair of jeans is $6 after everything's said and done. Great. But now you've picked them up. It took you some time to find them. It took you some time to check out at the store. It took you some time to bring them home. Then you had to photograph them. You had to make sure they didn't have any issues. You had to list them. You had to store them. Then eventually you sell them. You have to go find them, pack them up, print the label, take that item to the post office. Like every second you spend on all those things, your hourly rate is doing this. So you're on the clock, and you're going to spend that time, whether you sell on eBay or you sell on Amazon or what have you. Amazon just takes a chunk of that off your plate. So that's the reason. Sorry, it was a long explanation.
All right.
That's a big reason we went in that direction, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. So then you got into the got out of the clothing, out of the jeans, and then you rolled into. Is that when you purchased the warehouse or leased the warehouse?
Yeah. Well, we didn't lease the warehouse. We were actually able to use the warehouse.
Okay. So I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was a lease.
No. So we had the best price ever.
Okay.
Zero.
Oh.
So we were able to use the warehouse for, I don't know. It was about a year total, which was great. We had roughly 1,500 square feet of it to use, which is a good size amount, and some office space. And it was amazing. And we had ideas about, doing a prep and ship business, which we ultimately discarded or decided not to do because it just wasn't really enough room for that. We were able to start selling books on Amazon out of there. Obviously, that was way more than enough room to do books. We weren't doing any fulfilled by merchant books, so we didn't have to store any inventory. And we could still store all of our eBay inventory, which we still had and was selling too. So we kind of had the best of both worlds for a while, if that makes sense.
Now, when did you get involved with the consignment sales?
So the consignment came around because some of our Amazon friends were getting returns. Okay. And when they got returns, Amazon has really strict guidelines about selling things again, as new. So they wanted to liquidate those returns, and eBay was the only option. So we offered some consignment options to a few friends of ours, a couple larger Amazon sellers, that all happened that happened in 2018 as well. Now that I think about it, it was like spring of 2018. So a couple years ago.
Okay. So that was just basically a connection you had, and they came to you and said, Jason, would you be interested in doing this? And, how did that all come about?
Yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Believe it or not. Okay. And, we'd put out in the universe that we had this warehouse space. And it's interesting, like when, opportunities come your way or you get to utilize something, other things will appear that you didn't even count on. And right. So that's basically exactly how it happened. A friend of ours said, hey, I've got a bunch of returns. If you can come pick them up, you guys can sell them. We can work out a consignment deal. And I was like, I think we can do that.
Now, again, what is your experience now with the consignment sales? The pluses, the minuses, would you do it again? Just, for if anyone's considering doing it in the chat or watching the replay.
Consignment is a great business because you're not paying any cost of goods, right? Right. You didn't buy the item, somebody else did. But there's a couple things you really have to handle up front. One, you have to make sure that these items are going to be worth your time to list and sell. And what I mean by that is, well, maybe they're not sellable. maybe they're not really that worth that much, and it's just not worth it. Like if somebody said to you, hey, here's 1,000 items you can sell for me on eBay, but they only sell for $3 a piece. I mean, you're not going to take photographs of 1,000 items with that kind of profit margin. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Correct.
So unless they're all the same item and it was just quantity.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have to consider that. Will they sell? You have to consider, do you have enough space to store them for a while? Otherwise, and then it just becomes just like a normal eBay sale, for instance. You're like, somebody buys it, you pack it up and ship it. You got to track the sale because at the end of the month, let's say, you're going to settle up with your consignor and you're going to give them, a cut of the revenue. You got to figure out the revenue deal beforehand. That's an important one, which we did. And we didn't have any issues with that, but I've heard some horror stories. And you've got to decide how long are you going to hold these items? Because that's something people forget about. Like right. Most consignment deals have a clause that says after so long, the consignor can take the item back or the consignee keeps it.
I wasn't aware of that.
There's even some laws around that, believe it or not.
Kidding. Wow.
Yes. And you have to, and if you think about it, it makes sense. Like you can't hold these items for years because if you say you're running a brick and mortar store, you have finite space. You can't just keep filling the store up. Eventually you got to get rid of things.
Right.
And giving the item back to someone is tricky because usually, or they might not be in your state or your city. Like, how do you get them to them?
Let's say you're only going to make $5 or $7 and you got to ship it back to them. It costs you $4 to ship them back to them and you didn't make anything.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. So it's usually better if they say to you, hey, just get rid of it. Right. Because think about why they gave it to you anyway. Unless it's a really valuable item, this is just something they want to make maybe their cost of goods back on so they can go put in another item. And so we found that what you could do is sometimes you could bundle things together. We bundled together some shoes we had and sold a large bundle of those because that was simpler than trying to sell them all individually because there wasn't a lot of profit in them individually, but together, one big fell swoop, somebody else takes them and they go list them or, go sell them in their booth or whatever they got. So that's definitely possible. I mean, it's a great business, but just know that now your job is not to source items. Your job is to get clients. Your job is to handle the back end stuff. Like it's a mindset change, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but I had that down on my notes, and you got involved in the shoes. So I want to ask you a little bit about shoes because you and I are just jibber jabbering as we're flying right through. We got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Shoes. You got involved in shoes. I remember you and Corin talking about shoes, and how do you source shoes? Do you have like a strategy? And I know you've talked about refurbishing shoes, and when do you determine if it's profitable enough to refurbish? Why don't you just get a little bit in about shoe shelling?
Yeah.
Shelling, that's a mouthful.
I know, right? I kind of got interested in shoes when I interviewed Tino.
Tino, the shoe.
Alacqua. I'm not sure.
Right.
I think I'm saying his name right. Probably not.
Tino, the Soul Advisor.
Tino, the Soul Advisor. Great channel and a great dude. You should check out if you haven't.
So if you want to sell shoes, that's another channel to check out.
Yeah, he came up my radar because I just sent a message out there on YouTube and said, hey, I'm looking for people to talk to that maybe have never been on YouTube before, never been on camera, who are selling online. And he was one of the people, and we ended up doing a separate show with just him. Initially, we had a show with him and another reseller, but we did a separate show because Tino was doing some pretty big volume. He's doing a couple 100,000 a year just selling pre-owned shoes. So we got interested in, we did do some of the shoe. We bought some shoes. We, did some content around, the care of them and cleaning them and so on and selling them. And for us, it's a good business and there's good profit in it. Don't get me wrong. Shoes don't take up a lot of room. You can put a couple hundred pair of shoes like on one wall in a bedroom with no big deal.
I remember you listed a shoe racks that you guys liked, you and Corin liked.
Yes.
That and
the Song Mix.
That's on your descriptions as far as items that you use in your business. Is that still in the description?
Yeah, we don't really have any shoes right now that we're selling.
Okay, so that's not in your description. I guess you went back and looked at some of the older videos.
Yeah, they were. That's a great little song. The Song Mix shoe rack. It's a great little rack. For shoes, really good. And
it hold like 60 pairs of shoes or something?
I think it held maybe 50.
50, okay.
Yeah, five across, 10 rows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's super lightweight. You can pick it up with one hand, and then you put it together with no tools. But shoes is one of those businesses where it just seems like it's kind of a no-brainer. If you want to make a few extra bucks on it, you're going to have to dig a little to go find shoes for sure, because most of the shoes, like most of the things out there that are at garage sales or state sales, thrift stores, are not great, and they're not really worth
I
selling.
want to ask you about how do you determine? I mean, I guess obviously you type it into eBay or whatever and say, okay, this is a floor shine, yada yada yada.
Yeah. If you think jeans is complicated, shoes are really complicated because there's just a lot of and it's because there's just as many brands as there is most items,
right?
Most types, but more than that, the sizes and fits and the colors are crazy. Like the number of SKUs around shoes is just. Amazon sellers run into this. Like when you go to Amazon and you try to sell new shoes on Amazon, you can go broke. And the reason you can go broke is because when you type in, say like, Nike Air, whatever model, and it comes up and it shows you, man, this shoe's got a great rank. But what you're seeing is the parent rank. And there's all these child variations, like of sizes and colors. And most of those are not good. So if you find one of those out in the wild, you think this is the same one. Well, it's in black and the one on the listing was blue, but I'm sure it'll be fine. No, it won't be necessarily. It might not be good at all. And then you have the right size. So shoes is the same way on eBay. Like the brand and the color. I mean, the condition's important, but think about a pair of shoes. I mean, what's the most important thing when you're picking up a pair of shoes? What would you say?
For reselling or for me?
For you personally.
The size.
Right. It's got to fit.
Yeah, if it doesn't fit, I have no use for it.
If it doesn't fit, you have no use for it.
Right.
And there's no way you can describe to someone whether or not a shoe is going to fit them. I mean, all you can do is put, this is the size.
Yeah,
it's listed.
This is the 12C or 12D or,
right.
11.
Right.
I mean, like I used to say that with jeans. Every jeans, they fit differently.
Sure.
I tell you guys all the time, I bring this up a lot on my own worst enemy. If somebody gets into about fittings, jeans, and this, that, and the other, I don't want the return.
You don't want the return.
I said, do me a favor. If you've never purchased this brand of jeans or this style of jeans, it's probably best you didn't purchase.
Yeah. Or they'll say the famous, like, I wear this size in such and such brand. Do you think it'll work in this brand?
Yeah, like, how the heck would I know?
I have no idea.
Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, what would fit in the legs or the I don't know.
Yeah.
How about the rise? How's the rise? Is it low rise, medium rise, high rise?
And shoes is another one of those. Like if shoes don't fit, you're not going to wear them. Like they're not comfortable. Like you can't. If you walk around in shoes that don't fit, that's a miserable experience.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter what. Too big, too small, too tight, too narrow, too wide, whatever. So you have to kind of get all that knowledge around that. The condition's important, but the size is like critical, and you've got to understand the size and so on. So it just, for us, it became I thought it's a great niche, but it's a complex one with a lot of variations and a lot of subtleties, like conditioning shoes and making them look good and taking good photos. That's not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out, will it sell? Will this brand, this color, and this size sell? And that's what's tricky.
You're telling me that's a big influencer.
Who's the big influencer?
Oh, the variables.
Oh, the variables. Oh, yes. Yeah.
The color, the size, the fit. If I have a black, I keep bringing out floor shine because I used to wear floor shine when I was in business. But black floor shine. I don't know what they used to call those shoes with the tassels on them.
Oh, like a penny loafer.
Penny loafer tassel. Yeah.
I don't
know. I mean, I know I have a big foot, so it's not going to fit a lot of people. But what sells? Does 10D sell or 10C sell, or does
right? I mean, you've really got to do your homework on it.
Not Oxford. The burgundy color. Does Oxblood, does that sell better than the black or the brown or the?
and then your photograph is gonna.
That's the other thing too. I used to get that with jeans sometimes with the people complain about the color, and then he would claim an INAD, and it's like you have no defense against that.
There was somebody in our community. I can't remember who it was. They told me the story or they told a story on video. I don't remember which, but they said they sold an item. It was like a shirt.
Right.
And the person returned it and said, "You said this shirt was red. It looks orange." So they returned it. Then they relisted it and they sold it again. And the person said, "This shirt looks red. I thought it was orange." Or they thought it was reverse of it. Like they returned it again, the same shirt. And it's like, there's just no, so I always would tell people when I would list something, clothing, they're like, "Well, what color is it?" And I'm like, the photos just accurately depict the item. Like, because I can't, I don't know how you see color. And it's the same thing with shoes and anything like that. Like clothing, you're always going to deal with that, especially when it's pre-owned.
Yes.
If you know the color codes,
fade, yeah.
Like sometimes the shoes, I think, do have the color codes in them, maybe like listed in their item info and so on. And so you can say, "Hey, this is the color code that the manufacturer says this shoe is," and then you're covered. But you definitely are going to get a decent amount of returns with shoes. And usually, I didn't really have too many people trying to be fraudulent, but just got a little bit annoying, honestly.
Well, that's the thing that concerns me too about getting in their shoes is the cost. Now, I know when you were in the shoe business, I know pirate ship is very popular right now, but I guess you probably didn't use pirate ship because at that time you're probably just using USPS.
Yeah,
they had the shoe box, the flat rate shoe boxes.
Yeah, those are great.
Now, what did they end up? I'm not sure it's probably prices going up, but what were they costing you back when you were selling shoes?
Well, we also used, if we had the box, we used the priority box. It's not a flat rate box. It's just a priority box. And you can sort of cut it this special way and it'll perfectly fit a shoe box.
Okay.
There's two of them.
I thought they had like specifically shoe boxes that were priority.
They do, but they don't fit all shoes. Like they don't fit boots.
No, obviously not.
They don't fit like certain sizes. But like that priority mailbox, there's two of them. Not priority flat rate. Don't do that. Like don't alter that. You can't do that.
No, you can't. Well, then you actually can, but then it becomes priority by weight.
Yes, right. And they don't like you doing that, especially if it leaves a flat rate still on it, because it might be cheaper, the flat rate, than what it really ends up being.
Right.
But the priority box has two different sizes, and there's a way to like cut those. We watched a video on it from years ago, and it was kind of brilliant. Like you just scored it with a knife and made a different fold, and it worked great. I was like, I don't know who made that video, but it was amazing. The guy was just, and I'm like
a machine.
Can it really be that simple? And it's like, we got him and started doing it. It's like, yeah, you can ship them right in the box that way if they're in a box. And if they're not in a box, we ship some in padded flat rates. Like if they were small women's shoes or even heels, sometimes they would fit right in a padded flat rate. No problem.
Material as opposed to like leather. I mean, you could probably just bubble wrap it. Yeah. Padded flat rate.
But the bigger money would probably be in boots and bigger shoes like that to some degree. Like those are going to go for a higher price. So you're going to need a different box solution.
Well, I'm not in Texas or North Carolina, so I don't see a lot of boots. You might find an occasional pair of Uggs, but I'm sure they go very quickly.
Yeah, but we have the benefit, and that's a great point you bring up, Adam. Like it's definitely cheap to ship up and down the East Coast, but if I got to ship something to the West Coast, it is not cheap. So
I have to go to California or Texas.
I don't know why, who was it? Bonafide was telling me about that. Like, yeah, everything I send to Amazon goes to this one center here in Austin or nearby. And I'm like, man, you have no idea how lucky you are. Because when I got to ship to a fulfillment center in Laguna Beach, it is not cheap.
No.
So,
well, at least it's Amazon and they negotiate rates. I mean, they get
it is cheaper, but not when it goes here to Charlotte too, right here in town. And it's the other day I shipped 85 pounds and it was like $13 or something stupid like that. Because it was right here in Charlotte. It stayed here in Charlotte, like all 85 pounds of books. So
wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, let me check my notes. So we got into the shoes, got into the clothing. And then we were discussing pre-show that you had the warehouse.
Yeah.
And and again, you don't have to share this, but is that just through relationships? Why were you not given, but why did you have access to a free warehouse? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I think we shared this eventually on a video too. Karin's mother had a warehouse that she used partly for a business that they had, a family business.
Okay. And
she was using part of the warehouse for other things like storage and so on, but she had a big chunk of it she didn't need. Okay. And so, it kind of made sense to have it.
Right.
Yeah, it made sense. And when we were doing the when we were doing the sourcing for the Toys R Us liquidation,
Right.
we filled that warehouse up. I mean, we filled that 1,500 square feet like you would not believe. Like, I was like, I don't know, this is all going to fit in here. I think we put about, I think my best estimate was we put somewhere around 21,000 units in there.
Holy cow.
Now, I think this is like toys.
Yeah.
So these were not all small items. Some were large items.
Yeah, they weren't, video games.
No. Although there were video games, but it was such a mixture of things. So we needed that space. We went vertical. We double stacked pallets. I double stacked boxes. It was crazy. Like, I took stuff up to like 10 feet, 11 feet. So we used it, and of course we shipped it all out. Because that was the back end of our sourcing deal. What we did, we actually also did the prepping and shipping for it because it made sense.
Sure.
Because they were just going to do it somewhere else, but we already had it, and we hit the stores that were here in the Carolinas, and it was insane, but it was a lot of fun. But it was hard work, especially at first, because there was nowhere to put anything.
That it seemed like it was really difficult. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we were working about
to drive a truck.
Oh, she loves driving the big truck. No, you don't have to ask her twice to get behind the wheel of a big truck. So she's like, yep, I'm doing it. So, and she did. So she drove like a 21-foot Penske or whatever it was. I mean, it was a big truck.
Beth says, were you able to sell everything off? Well, he's talking about the when they were sourcing for other resellers, basically.
Yeah.
And they were shipping it into them, and then they were you shipping it directly to Amazon, or were they shipping it in?
We were shipping it directly to Amazon. It all went to, we became very friendly with the FedEx driver.
Okay.
And we would call in. I think one day we called and said, we have 67 boxes. And a lot of these were like the big, 30-inch or whatever the size was. It was 25. Was it 20? The large loads box.
Okay.
It was like that size. And then some were like the medium heavy duty, and those were packed to 50 pounds, almost exactly each one.
Okay.
And so he would come and they'd bring like a big, a bigger delivery truck, and we would load up most of the truck. It was crazy. Like he did
truck to pick that up.
Yeah. Well, and you had to schedule like the day before, and they would show up in a window. So we'd have to stay there and wait, but we had a dock. So we were able to just push them right down to them, and they would come and just load up, like 30, 40, 50, 60 boxes. And that went on for like weeks. So it was not a quick process.
Right. Well, they did Toys R Us, and they rolled into Bonton.
Yeah, we rolled into Bonton like a month later, which was that was cool. We got to travel quite a bit on that. We were in Wisconsin, so don't this is the power of like networking with people. We were able to
people network, even just talk to managers, talk to employees.
We were all over with them. We were in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Michigan. I'm probably forgetting somewhere, but yeah, it was all over that area. The Bonton stores, they went out, big department store chain, and it was great stuff. They just made a bunch of bad decisions, that company, and closed them all down. They had like 9 brands. They had 9 brands of stores, department stores, and they were all the exact same store. Exact same. Like there was no difference. You went in, you're going, why did you do this? Why did you think there was this? It made no sense, but every store was exactly the same, had the same brand, same layout, more or less. Right. And, it was kind of sad they all went out because some of those people have been working there a long time, but it was, that was a lot of fun. So.
Okay, well, let's roll into the books. We get about another 20 minutes or so, and let's emphasize book selling. And I'm going to put you on full screen, and I will share. Like I said, I put up some of those book scanners. So if you get into why you got into book selling, why you do FBA, discuss the book scanners, the software, the costs that are involved, and basically how you source, and whatever you could share with someone that wants to get into selling books. And would you recommend we start at FBM or with just a regular personal account and then roll into the professional account, or whatever you feel is best, and explain it to us.
Yeah, sure. we so again, if you're wanting to sell on Amazon and you want to use the power of FBA, which I think is an amazing power because it handles all that warehousing and customer service for you, and it comes at a cost, but it would come at a cost if you did it as well. Books is a great way to do it because books are plentiful. They're readily available all over. Most people just look at them as a nuisance, even in stores. So there's no lack of opportunity. Now, what you will find with books is, and they're not very expensive for the most part. What you will find with books is there's a time component. It takes a lot of time to go through books to find the ones you want. Probably no different really than most clothing, honestly, if you're a clothing seller. And books is more like if you were selling toys on Amazon, you might buy one toy and buy 10 of them, send them all in and try to keep your price as good as you can. Books, you would look for 10 different books. You're not going to send a bunch of multiple copies of the same book, not very likely. So it's more about going through a lot of books and picking out the ones that aren't so great. I think that for somebody just getting started who doesn't have a lot of capital or maybe a lot of experience or both with Amazon, books is still one of the best ways to do it because of all those reasons I just mentioned. No matter where you live, you are likely going to be able to find a source of books, many sources of books. You got to be a little creative sometimes, but they are out there. So we got started doing that. And it's just a matter of getting enough scans in. The more you scan, the more you're going to find. And when I say scans, like we use our smartphones, we use scanning apps like Scout IQ, which is one that I'm an affiliate for, which I highly recommend. And all the scanning apps do is they tell you, given preset triggers and so on, hey, is this worth picking up or not? Given like what your what profit you want to make and other criteria like sales rank and things like that, they kind of take all that off your plate and give you an accept or reject every time you scan the book's barcode. So if you can scan through enough books in whatever time frame you have, you're going to find books and then you're going to package them up and send them to Amazon. And that's what we've done. And I think that it's as easy a way to get involved in Amazon FBA as anything. And it's still a viable market. Some books that you aren't going to go to Amazon, you still could sell on eBay or other sources if need be. For instance, you got them home and saw like, this is not quite what I thought it was, or maybe the condition's not as good. Condition doesn't matter quite as much on books as it does on other things. You're not really going to be selling many new books. Pretty much everything you sell book-wise is going to be pre-owned because it's very hard to prove that you actually got a new book on Amazon. That can be a little tricky and can get you a little bit.
Even if you buy something new that's like a closeout at, say, an Always Bargain Basement or a Dollar Tree or something, technically that's not new.
Yeah, it's really not worth the risk, in my opinion, to sell new.
Right.
And from everything I've read of other bigger books,
what is the category? Isn't there a category like very good, like new or something?
There is. There's like new, there's very
Right.
good, there's good, there's acceptable.
Right.
And I always undergrade, if I don't even really
never deliver.
Yeah, like I don't even spend any time on the condition. Like I'll put it's good, it's acceptable, and move on. And then the person's hopefully pleasantly surprised.
Right.
I don't try to source books that I wouldn't personally want to buy myself, even as a used book. Like if it's in too bad a shape, I don't care how much it's worth. I'm not picking it up because I don't want to deal with the return. I don't want to deal with, possibly negative feedback. Those things aren't worth it to me over a few bucks on a book. Better just to move on to the next book. So with books, by the way, depending on what your criteria are, you're going to put back about 98% of them, anywhere from 95 to 98%, depending on what.
2% success rate is about average.
Well, two is conservative. I'm conservative with them.
Okay.
Our rate is it's a bit over 2. 3 to 5 is probably where a lot of people will land, but it kind of depends on your profit requirement. And there's going to be some things that happen with books that don't happen with other items. You will see sometimes other people will jump on the listings. Because remember, on Amazon, you're all listing on the same listing.
Right.
And price will drop. You will see that some of your inventory just won't sell in a reasonable amount of time. You got to get rid of it because Amazon charges you a storage fee every month that book is there. And it's not that much, but over time, a lot of books, it kind of adds up and you got to get rid of them.
Storage fee, again, because I've had other people on it that shipped to Amazon around the Q4, it increases dramatically.
It does. It does. And it's worth, and Amazon comes in and gives you free removals sometimes, which is cool.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
They do that a couple times a year.
Okay.
Because they want to clear out fulfillment centers too.
Sure.
I mean,
That's
and
great.
after having worked there, I can tell you why. It's ridiculous. So how much stuff
we
is
didn't
coming?
get into that, guys. I wouldn't have mentioned that Jason works part-time for Amazon. We didn't even get into that yet.
Yeah. But I mean, books, we've gone that route because of all the reasons I mentioned. I just did a video, I think Adam was talking about a little bit, on book selling and getting started, where I contrasted two ways you could do it. If you had a really budget approach, or you had a few more dollars to sink into it, or you can kind of mix and match those two. It doesn't really matter depending on what your comfort level is. But it's not an expensive niche to get into, but it will take a little longer to see your profit. I would tell people the first 3 months, count on not making any money and count on losing money. Because
I was going to ask you too, again, because again, I say this a lot. I'm my own worst enemy, but these recurring expenses, things such as your SCAD IQ, for one person, let's say, and I believe like that certain apps have, like, you can have like a business account and have multiple people, and they just charge you so much extra. SCAD IQ, how much is that? I mean, ballpark. I don't give me exact numbers, but for one person to have SCAD IQ,
you can get a couple weeks for free. And then after that, it's basically $44 a month for the database plus live lookup plan.
Okay. Now, does that have, again, I don't see Maggie in here, but I'm sure she'll watch the replay. Maggie Doodle sells books. She says you definitely want to get the app that downloads, where you can download before you go into a location, because sometimes you don't have a cellular signal or a Wi-Fi signal, so you're out of luck if you don't have it downloaded already.
That's correct. Like, you can download, it's a smaller version of Amazon's database, because they're not looking at every book that's ever been on Amazon. Just like there's some criteria. Caleb Roth could probably speak that better than me because he created it. But yes, she's right, because if you're only doing the live lookup version, it means you have to have cellular signal. Plus it's slower because it's literally got a ping Amazon server every time.
Okay. And then obviously, guys, we'll get into that a little bit. You can scan books. I guess you get into that in your video with your smartphone, but I would think it's, again, you're a numbers person. I don't need the exact numbers, but ballpark, what would you say? How much more quick can you scan books with a Bluetooth scanner and your app, as opposed to just individually, with a smartphone?
I would say
times.
I would say the Bluetooth scanner, like this is the little KDC 200 that we use. We have a couple of these. I would say, and because we've kind of done this before,
right?
We are 3 to 5 times faster with the Bluetooth scanner.
3 to 5. Okay.
It's quite a bit.
Because I know I try scanning things when the retail stores when I'm doing RA, and it takes forever.
I mean, it's a problem of, hang on a second. I think I have a book sitting here. It's a problem of, this is the challenge. Books are sitting in a shelf. Like this is one we're not selling. But books are sitting in a shelf, and what you have to do is you have to pull the book out, and then you have to pull up your phone app, and scan, and they'll wait. And there it is. So now you can go in and look, say, oh, this book is 9,700 rank, which is a great rank for $10.19. I think this book has some damage on it. That's why we're not selling it. And actually the used and then you have to click over to use. It's only selling for $7.21. That means after fees, that would only make 85 cents.
Oh,
that's not counting the cost to buy the book. So obviously a no. So the problem is, like, it's giving you the info, but that's not even the real win with scanners and other apps. I want to know if I should buy it or not. And the info is going to require me to look at the phone on every single one I do, and then do some calculation in my head. And that's where the real downfall comes. Whereas the Bluetooth scanner, like, instantly reads the barcode, instantly transmits it to your scanning app, and instantly gives you a audible no sound, which is like, or doop. It's like a little ding that says yes.
I am, as opposed to like,
Right. And then with the yes, I can look down at my phone and make a decision from there, or I can just put it in my bag and move on. So either.
Again, let's get into that. I'm not immediately, but before we close things down, you discussed about going to book sales and how you would say there might be 50 people in line and there's 45 booksellers.
Yeah.
And they all have the Bluetooth scanners. So you said sometimes what you got to do is you'll scan something, and then if you get the approval tone, you stick it in whatever, right, carts or out of your bag or whatever, and then you can always check later, because there's just so much competition at these locations.
Yeah. So book sales are weird because they're not like a thrift store. Like a thrift store, you never know if you're coming into a good batch of inventory or not. Like a bunch of booksellers might have went just through it. Maybe they didn't for a day. Who knows? But at a book sale, you know that most of the people standing in line before the sale opens are booksellers.
Right.
And they're scanning. Like there's nothing hidden about it. Like everybody is scanning the first couple hours. Like that's primarily who's here. It's very few just random people. So there is a benefit to getting your hands on the profitable books quicker rather than later, because some of them are going to be gone if you wait. So what we will do is we will set up our triggers based on taking a fact the price of the book, which for most of our book sales ends up being about $2.50. It's usually $2 to $3, $2 for softbacks, $3 for hardback. So we'll say, all right, $2.50 is a rough estimate. And we just go through a column of the books. It's a library usually, depending on the sale. And every yes we get, we just put in our bag. We have these big, I don't have any here. We have these big IKEA bags that hold like 55 pounds.
Resellers know IKEA bags, the big blue IKEA bags.
Oh, yeah. And we just put them in there and move on. Like, I don't even look at it. I don't care what it is, because some of those books probably aren't really going to be worth it, potentially, but it doesn't matter. Like the time I'm going to spend looking at it, I could have potentially gotten another book that was worth it, or even two. Or three. So I'm under the gun. Like I want to get in that first 45, and doing that, we usually come away with like 150 books at a book sale. So that's great. And if you figure in our case, we're looking for like a $5 profit on each. So that's $750 potentially in profit.
Right.
And it doesn't come out to quite that much because there's other factors, but it's still good for, like 2 hours we're there.
Right.
So I highly recommend that. And that's what a Bluetooth scanner does. You couldn't go that fast with your phone. I see people try it with their phone, and I'm just like, you're costing yourself money not using the right equipment. Like it would be like trying to build a house and using a screwdriver to hammer in nails instead of a hammer. It doesn't make sense.
I wanted to bring up, again, this will be similar to your model. I want to bring that up real fast just to show the people so they can see it a little bit better. Let's see here. Okay, this should be the one that you're currently using. I don't have my phone here, so hopefully you guys can see that.
Yeah, that's the I. There's also an M, and they're both great. I think I've used the M as well. Now I think about it.
Okay. So made for Bluetooth, made for iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, and Android.
You can probably get it used a little cheaper. Is that a new one? I can't tell.
That is new, and let's see.
Yeah, new you can get a little cheaper, probably like one.
Yeah, no, I need 210. Yeah. Apparently, I guess it's not.
That one doesn't. There's probably several listings of that one too, so you might find another one if you kind of look around. I've seen the used ones. You can get more like
on eBay or something.
Yeah, you can probably get down to even like 150 used. Okay. And honestly, I'd probably get one used if you had to. I mean, if it doesn't work, you can return it. It's a small, tiny thing. I told you the reason I like this one because it attaches to you can attach to the back of the phone if you want. It's small, it's fast. It doesn't make you're able to cut off the audible dings that it has.
Right.
This is annoying. I don't want to hear the dings.
Well, like I said, you can use Bluetooth. Well, yeah, that's the other question I had for you. Again, this has just popped in my head. I'm assuming you can. Can you use Bluetooth earbuds when you're using the Bluetooth for the?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Karin and I both do that, so that way you can have it in your ear because you're just listening. That way you're not having to.
Right.
And again, if you're sourcing somewhere there's not other booksellers, take all the time you want. But remember, you're on the clock. Like every second you spend in that store, your hourly rate's going down.
Right.
So, But man, book scanning can be really fast. We can scan, to give you an example, with these scanners, because we've tracked it many, many times. We can scan 500 to 600 books an hour. So if you think about that, the math on that, if you're pulling even 2%,
right,
you're pulling at least 10 books to maybe 12 books. If you're making $5 on each book, that's 50 to $60 an hour. Which is pretty good for a bookseller on the front end of it. So the Bluetooth scanners, I mean, I put on there, you can do it with your phone, but I would get a Bluetooth scanner, even a cheaper one like the Yo-Yo.
That's what I just brought up. I wanted to ask you about that before we. So that's only $44. Now, what were the advantages of the one that you were describing?
I know a friend of mine had one. I don't know if it was that one, but it was one very similar. Okay. And the differences would be that particular one, I think, clicks, although it doesn't look like there's any sales history on that unless you don't have Keepa engaged. That one I think clicks, which is kind of annoying to me.
I don't know why it's not Keepa, but
it's probably not going to last quite as long, although there are people who swear by them. There's nothing wrong with getting started with that one. I just like one that's as small as possible. Like this thing right here, I can literally put my hand and nobody even knows I have it. Like I can actually have my thumb like this and you can't tell that I even have a scanner in it. That one's a little bit bigger. So sometimes people in a store, an employee or whatever will get a little bit nuts and be like, what are you doing? You can't scan a book. I had somebody at a store one time, so you can't scan the books. And I'm like, I'm not hurting them.
I'm not hurting them.
I just kept doing it. Like they didn't come. They just kept giving me evil looks. But I'm like,
dirty.
Like tough. I'm looking it up. I'm looking at the reviews on this product, because that's something people do in stores. They'll scan the barcode and see what the reviews are.
Oh yeah. I mean, as a consumer, I'll go on eBay or Amazon and I'll look at prices even. I'll say, well,
right.
It's on sale for $15 here. What is it on Amazon? Or
yeah.
What are the reviews on Amazon?
Absolutely. So it's like, and technically I'm looking at the reviews on the item, decide if I want to buy it to resell it. So, yeah, I just like, but whatever you do, like if you decide to book sell, a scanner and a scanning app, to me, man, they're right up there. I mean, you can do it without, but boy, it's a lot tougher.
Well, again, I'm running, and you're much better with numbers than I am, but I'm just running through my mind and I'm thinking ballpark $100 ish to get into the book selling game. $40 for your Amazon account, $40 ish for the software, right?
Yep.
And then just miscellaneous.
Yeah, and then if you want to get a scanner, that's where that would be an extra. But again,
a scanner too, right? Well, that would just you could pay that cost, but
yeah, you're gonna.
What you're talking $300, $400. I guess you could try the $40 scanner, see if that would work to start.
Yeah, and you can get one used. I think that, and it's one of these things too, Adam, like if I told you the cost of your business is going to be $125 a month in subscriptions, is it worth it? Well, you can't answer that question unless I tell you what you're going to make.
Right.
Right. And if you were only selling $50 of books a month, well, that's not worth it. No. So, but on the other hand, if you're selling $2,000 worth of books a month, well, that might be worth it then, because it's going to cost you something to be in business. Like you're going to be paying for something.
Sure. Like we discussed before, there's always a cost of doing business.
For sure. So it's just, what do you think's worth it? Like, as we were talking about earlier, like if you went the wholesale route, that's an expensive business to get into. It's definitely profitable and worth it, but you're going to spend some money and you might drill a bunch of dry holes before you hit oil, So I just think books is a low cost, low barriers to entry method.
Okay. So why don't we just quickly talk about sourcing and then just briefly touch on your Amazon job?
Yeah.
For sourcing books. Again, you talked about book sales. Is there any particular website, or how do you locate them?
There's the old ancient booksalefinder.com.
Okay.
And I always say it's ancient because it looks like it's from the 90s.
Okay.
And but not every book sale is on there, but they will list a lot of the book sales across the country. You can search by state, and then it's kind of a weird order, but they will list by state book sales that are upcoming. So you can go try one of these book sales. A lot of them are friends of the library or library sales or other nonprofit organizations. Sometimes there's an entry fee to get in early. If you're going to go get a bunch of books, that entry fee is way worth it. If you're not, it might not be worth it.
So I guess if you're new, just don't pay the fee. But if you're an experienced seller, then you might want
Yeah,
to pay.
and the fee is usually something like join the friends of the library and get in on Friday night instead of Saturday morning.
Oh, really? So you get in the evening before?
Correct. And then you join the friends for $25 and you're a member for a year. So if they have another sale 6 months later, you can go back.
Might be worth it. Okay.
Right. And but libraries in general are great for books. Libraries that sell books.
You periodically just pop in the libraries. You know how they have the carts, like usually in the foyer with the used books. You periodically just pop in and start scanning things.
We have a route. I tracked for a while, like how many scans and what pulls we got from each library and how much we spent. And so we kind of know the ones that are really good, the ones that are sort of good. There's a couple we don't even go back to.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Because you're not going to see a lot of books in a library for sale. Like it's going to be like a couple hundred at most. But we almost always come away with books.
Right.
And by the way, it's a good place to go do some work in a quiet environment if you need to. So
True.
it's a second benefit.
Very true. Okay, so we discussed not necessarily thrift stores. So majority of your sourcing is from libraries and book sales, correct?
Yeah, those are the two big ones. We've kind of shied away from a lot of the thrift stores as of late. I mean, Goodwills and so on, our accept rate was like 1.25.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and they got a lot of books there. There's going to be 500 books in every Goodwill in Charlotte for the most part. So you're going to spend an hour plus the time to drive there, but you're only going to come away with like 6 books. And that kind of sucks.
Now, what about like, do you get involved with Craigslist ads or like, what about like college students? Like when college, we talked about textbooks and they can be valuable. And
I'm not as good at that as some people are for sure.
Okay.
I haven't had quite as much luck. I have bought a few. Textbooks are another beast. And I would caution new booksellers against going the textbook route.
Okay. Yeah, we discussed that pre-chat, and I wasn't even aware that you get the IP claims, I guess, basically.
Yeah, the 3 big publishers won a big, huge lawsuit a few years ago, and they periodically and consistently go after textbook sellers on Amazon. Now, every textbook seller
IP is intellectual property, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Basically, what these publishers are trying to do is protect their pricing on their books.
Right.
So they will they will buy your book, and then they will report you to Amazon as selling counterfeits. And you have to prove it's not. And you can't.
No.
You don't have any proof.
No.
And so your account can get suspended and even shut down. And, they have law firms that represent them and law firms that contact you and say, hey, you're selling this book and you're not authorized to by this company. It's Cengage, Pearson, McGraw-Hill. What's the other one?
Oh, yeah, they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, all 4 of those are bad.
When I was in elementary school, McGraw-Hill was around.
Well, McGraw-Hill sells non-textbooks too.
Right.
And I don't think you have an issue there. But if you sell textbooks from one of those 3 companies, you run the risk of it. And it's happened to quite a few people over the last few years. So I just tell people, stay away from that for now. There's great money in it. That's the problem. There's great money in it.
Well, if they file an IP claim, can they just remove the listing, or is it like a ding against your account?
Here's the thing on Amazon. You can remove the listing, but you still have to prove that it wasn't counterfeit. And if you leave the listing inactive, even after you sold it, they can still come after you. Even though you don't have a current active one, if you had an inactive listing.
How about that?
So that's why I delete inactive listings after the return period. One of the reasons. So, so just be careful with that. You just have to be super careful about going down that road, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't recommend it to new sellers.
Okay, we're getting. I know you have time constraints because Jason does work.
I got a few minutes, but not. We can. I can go.
Just touch briefly on your Amazon career, and then we'll wrap things up. And then we'll, like I said, I'll link to your show where you discuss books. Yeah. That in the description after the video posts.
Yeah. So I started working for Amazon back in the fall at what's called a sortation center, which is actually kind of like the last stop before the books go to before the packages go to your house, your wherever.
Right.
And I did it just to pick up extra money. I also kind of want to see a little bit on the inside, how the ship was being floated, so to speak. And it's been a great experience, but it's been quite eye-opening. I realized very quickly, I talked about this in a video, but Amazon's only goal is to get an item from point A to point B. They're a logistics company. They're not a sales company. They're not a marketing company. Their objective is to take something from a seller, which is sometimes them or you or me, and get it to a buyer as fast and effectively and cheaply as possible. That's it. That's all they're focused on. Everything revolves around that metric. That building that I'm in every night is emptied. There's no items in it, which is pretty crazy when you think, like, even right now in non-peak, I think we have 130,000 items a day go through that building.
Wow.
And they come in and are gone in less than 24 hours, like every day. Like, that doesn't change. And at peak season, it was like 250,000 a day.
No kidding. Wow.
So they were doing 1 million items
every day. 250,000 items are wow.
And it's not even that big of a center. Well, it is. I mean, it is, but like there's others that even do more volume than that. But it just told me that, like, you know, the model is people will pay for things if they can get them quickly. They can pay for things, they can get them shipped to them. You know, Amazon is just about convenience. That's all it is. It's about being able to find a wide selection of items at a good price and getting them shipped to you quickly. That's it.
We literally can shop from your recliner or your bed or your kitchen table or yeah.
So if you're going to sell on Amazon, you need to buy into that mentality to some degree. It's not an eBay mentality. It really isn't. It's different. You know, they're about a low price and getting it to the customer quickly. If you can't do that, Amazon's going to punish you. Like, you're not going to be successful on Amazon. If you can do that, either through using FBA or you fulfill it yourself and get it done quickly and get a great price, you can sell way more than you can sell on any other platform. I mean, they are the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? So that's what I've learned.
One quick closing question and we'll wrap things up. Do you use a repricer?
Yes. We're not using one right at this moment, only because we just restarted sort of the book business. So I'm just doing some hand repricing.
Manually. Okay.
Yeah. But, there's one that comes with Acceler list that's pretty good that we've used in the past. There's Reprice It that's good. There's more expensive options too, but you got to be careful with the ones that are not book specific, okay, because they will decimate your prices if you're not careful. So.
Very interesting. All right, guys. Jason has to get to his other job. So
somebody's got to get your packages to you. If you live in the Carolinas.
Again, I want to thank Jason for joining us, guys, and all his information, all his email, his YouTube channel, his Instagram, everything is listed in the description below. And I will post the link to his video they just posted today about, you know, reselling books. We'll get that up. I want to thank everyone for being here, whether you're watching, we're here live. I appreciate you guys, especially for coming to live. You may ask questions in the comments below, or again, Jason's email is in the description as well. So you can reach out to Jason if you have any questions about, you know, reselling or book selling. Jason is very helpful and very knowledgeable. So again, guys, want to thank you all for being here. And again, like on the screen there, please like, subscribe, share, and comment.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks again.